Mr. Lauder, thank you for this great award, and to the World Jewish Congress, to Prime Minister Mulrooney. I have to say I was looking over past recipients of the award, Ken Burns, Itzhak Perlman, Kirk Douglas. It makes me feel a little bit like a short order cook in the kitchen of Thomas Keller. But thank you. I've always been fond of a line from George Orwell. To see what's in front of one's nose needs a constant struggle. It sums up the job of a newspaper columnist. My colleagues in the news department, the reporters and editors and bureau chiefs there, are in the business of revealing what's new, what's different, what you didn't know the day before. Those of us who work on the opinion desk are, at our best, largely in the business of reminding readers of what they once knew or should have known, applying those reminders to new cases, giving them fresh expression. That's the business I'm in. We are now in a season of reminders, and it's fitting that this ceremony takes place on the 85th anniversary of Kristallnacht. We commemorate that night not because it represents the greatest tragedy in and of itself. 91 or so murdered on Kristallnacht is almost minor in the long history of Jewish calamity, including what befell us last month. We commemorate Kristallnacht, rather, for what it presaged and for what it symbolized. What it presaged was the impending destruction of European Jewry. What it symbolized was the shattering of a moral order that might have prevented their destruction. Kristallnacht was more than a pogrom in the heart of supposedly civilized Europe. It was the signal that all the old categories, decency, order, fairness, justice, reason, no longer applied. Broken glass was a reminder of how brittle the barrier between civilization and barbarism can be. This moral shattering did not happen overnight. It was years in the making. It first required the preparation of the public mind to accept that anything was permissible when it came to the Jews. And anything was permissible because, as Joseph Goebbels insisted, the Jews, quote, are guilty. Guilt first, crime second. Like the Red Queen's sentence first, verdict afterwards in Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. That is the centerpiece of the inverted logic and moral universe on which all anti-Semitism rests. We are now witnessing on a daily and even hourly basis, and on a scale only a few of us thought possible just a few years ago, the same kind of moral and logical inversions, the same heads I win, tails you lose, sleight of hand reasoning, the same denying to Jews the feelings and the rights granted to everyone else, the same preparing of the public mind for another open season on the Jews. You see it everywhere, right here, in front of our noses. Israel is told that it has a quote-unquote right to self-defense, and that every conceivable means of self-defense amounts to a war crime. Israel is accused of continuing to occupy Gaza long after it stopped occupying any part of it in 2005, and then it is sternly warned not to reoccupy Gaza in the wake of the war. Israel is told not to blockade Gaza by depriving it of fuel, electricity, or other goods, even after it was accused for years of blockading Gaza when fuel, electricity, and other goods flowed. Israel is expected to shut down its settlements in the West Bank for the sake of a Palestinian state, and then told that the kibbutzim, whose members were slaughtered last month, were also, quote-unquote, settlements. Israel is asked to give Palestinian civilians time to flee Gaza before the Israeli military campaign begins. And then Israel is denounced for creating a Nakba by forcing Palestinians to flee their homes. Israel is told that it must scrupulously abide by the laws of war, even as the wanton murder, rape, and kidnapping of Israelis is treated as a legitimate form of resistance. And it's not just Israelis. Americans are told that from the river to the sea is a call for the creation of a Palestinian state, without any mention that it is principally a call for the destruction of the Jewish state. Americans are told that we must hold Israel to a higher moral standard because it is a democracy, and that we should also denounce it because it's an apartheid state. Americans are told that they should support calls for free Palestine, and that the vehicle for doing so is a Hamas regime that has stripped Palestinians of every civil and human right, not least by treating them as cannon fodder or human shields in its theocratic death struggle against democratic Israel. And then, the greatest lie, that Israel, the victim of one of the greatest massacres in memory, the proportional equivalent of 16 9/11s by American standards, an atrocity that would have been 10 or 100 times worse if the perpetrators had been given the means and opportunity, that Israel, in fact, is the real aggressor, the real perpetrator. The perpetrator, on account of its alleged crimes before October 7th, which meant that it got what was coming, and the perpetrator for having the gall to fight back. No matter what, Israel is guilty, because Israel, like the Jews of Goebbels' imagination, is definitionally guilty from birth, and the only remedy for guilt from birth is death. Anti-Zionism, an openly eliminationist ideology that is indistinguishable from anti-Semitism, except that it hides itself better, is now a mainstream, respectable view on college campuses, newspaper offices, and so many other places that define our culture. And if, like me, you believe that politics lies downstream from culture, it won't be long before it takes hold on campaign trails, in legislatures, and all the other institutions of state. We are already at the point where the pro-Palestinian movement has become openly pro-Hamas, where the reaction to the murder of Jews is euphoria on the streets of New York and other cities, where the more Jews are killed, the more it is taken as evidence of the perfidy of the Jews themselves. This is a road back to Kristallnacht. It is important to call this out, to point again and again and again to the illogic, the fabrications, the reversals of causality that go into the conspiracy theory that is anti-Zionism. We have to expose the intellectual sloppiness and moral slipperiness that occurs when retaliation is conflated with aggression, when deliberate murder is treated as the moral equivalent of manslaughter, when raw casualty figures are seen as substitutes, adequate substitutes for comparative culpability, when the matter of intent is deleted from the equation of justice. Yet, just as important as it is to see what is in front of our noses, it is equally important for us to stop holding our noses. We Jews have been holding our noses for quite some time when it comes to private schools and universities to which we send our children or grandchildren. We've been holding our noses for quite some time when it comes to the media we read, watch, and listen to. We've been holding our noses when it comes to the institutions we support so generously through our philanthropy. I won't name names, you know them anyway. We have wagered that it is better to have influence on the inside than to complain from the outside. But if that influence has achieved anything of real value, it is difficult to see in this degraded mainstream culture in which Jews increasingly feel alone and afraid. Now we face a two-front challenge. The first, a frontal battle against the forces gathering to destroy the state of Israel and all those who support it. For diaspora Jews, this is a battle we won't have to fight militarily as our brothers and cousins and sisters in Israel do. But we must fight it politically, institutionally, financially, culturally, in the realm of ideas and the words that give those ideas expression. The second challenge, a much more patient and expansive and expensive effort, is to create new institutions, new private schools and universities, new news media, new publishing houses, new think tanks, new prize committees, a new ecosystem of thought and creativity and culture to provide an alternative and, ultimately, a replacement to the rotted out places that we're at last starting, I hope, to leave behind. In this sense, the award you are giving me is aptly named. Teddy Kollek, for all he did in his long career, will be remembered, I think, for two great things: standing for an undivided Jerusalem, united and held together by Israeli arms, and promoting within that city a diverse, boisterous, and flourishing culture, open to all so long as they came and come in peace. These are the things worth standing for today. An Israel whose strength and moral confidence protects not only the lives of its people, but the free and vibrant society within it, and an America that does not succumb to the same kind of moral disorder that occurred a century ago, when hatred of the Jews became the vehicle for the destruction of all liberal values, of which the shattered glass of Kristallnacht became so terribly emblematic. That is the task that falls on all of us tonight, and it's a task that we begin by seeing what is in front of our nose. Thank you very much.